Hello and welcome along to this UCAS International podcast with me, Robbie James, and in today's episode, our focus is very much on student accommodation. We're going to talk about when and where you should look for your student accommodation, and also how the process works of moving in, and once you have moved in, how it's going to look living with other people and the various options available to you. And we are going to do that in the wonderful company of my two guests. It's welcome along all the way from Manchester Metropolitan University to Terry Lancaster. Terry, welcome to you.
Thank you.
And we've also got from University of West of England, or UWE as we call it, Craig Kemp as well. Craig, welcome along to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Just very quickly, before we get stuck into things, Terry, you were telling us before we started recording that you're a podcaster.
Very loose. I'd use that term very loosely.
Yeah, but I quite liked it. So you just give us a quick insight. You're you live on a narrowboat.
I do, yeah.
And you do a podcast from the narrowboat.
Yeah.
About the narrowboat?
About the narrowboat and the kind of antics that happen, all the mishaps and that kind of thing.
It's good stuff, Terry. We like it. Craig?
Really tight space. But
Yes. Well, it is a narrowboat. So yeah, that kind of explains it. Craig, ever done any narrowboat podcasting either?
I can't say that I have, no.
Something for us to work on.
Maybe, yes.
If things go well, maybe we'll go around for dinner, round Terry's.
Narrowboat.
We'll go on the narrowboat. Good stuff. So lots to get into with both of you regarding university accommodation. Now, Craig, I know you work within the customer relations team, right, at
That's correct,
University of West England. Tell us a little bit about the teams that are available at universities. So universities basically have teams that oversee the accommodation factor, the accommodation part of it. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because we have an accommodation services department, which is made up of, I believe, about 4 teams. So I'm obviously in the customer relations team, which we call admin, and we do all the fun stuff of allocating students, sending out the offers, all that good stuff. We've got a maintenance team, so day-to-day fixes, essential maintenance. We have our accommodation managers, so they're on the ground to make sure that once students have moved in, they're there to help with anything that they need within the accommodation. And then we also have our customer service team, which deals with the day-to-day parcels, all that other stuff that comes with living in accommodation. And
you live within or work within the residential services team. Terry, tell us about that. How's that work?
Yeah, so there's kind of the residential services kind of split into 2 parts. So you have my counterpart who looks after like the facilities and the operations of the owned halls of residence that we have, and then I manage the accommodation allocations team. So their team is to kind of sell and give accommodation advice to students coming to Manchester Met. I also look after the residential life team, who look after student engagement, run our events program, but also kind of the pastoral care of things, as well as student behaviour as well.
So I suppose my first question to both of you would be, when do you start thinking about university accommodation in your journey coming to studying in the UK? Craig, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm not sure how it's done on your side of things, but our start's quite early into the new year. So we often start getting questions and engagement around March time. We don't open our applications until June, but that is done to give everyone an opportunity to look everywhere, so other universities, all of the accommodation options, right. And also to allow everyone to have a kind of fair chance at applying and getting their first choice with us.
So that's just the inquiry phase and the research phase, which is a huge part of it, Terry, isn't it? The research, looking at various options, and of course, you're balancing it up with which course are you going to study at which university. So there's a lot to think about before you're even on the accommodation.
Yeah, I think an important thing as well is to kind of evaluate what you want from your accommodation as well. So a lot of universities have different types of accommodation. Like we have like 12-bedroom townhouses that are non-ensuite.
Sounds fancy.
We have the same as well. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like 12 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. But then on the opposite end of the scale, we have 8 bedrooms, all en suite. So it's kind of, what do you want from your university accommodation? I think that's also an important thing to look at before actually applying, is to kind of get a list. But depending on what university, so by the sound of it, I think you might work on an allocations system, whereas we work on a self-allocation. So our students pick their own room type, and they pick even where they want the room within the flat. So we open in March and we run right the way through from March. So because we work on a self allocation basis, different types of accommodation can book up quite quickly. So kind of have a top list of what types of accommodation you want. So do you kind of your research first, what you want from your accommodation, but don't kind of put all your hopes on one type.
That's interesting. So is that a little bit like, to use an analogy, for like booking a ticket for an event where you can pick your seat? So yours will be a bit like you can pick your seat, whereas maybe at University of West of England, it's more like they pick it for you.
No, so they students can still choose their preferences.
Right.
So very similar to what you said with researching, knowing what you want before the application's open. What we do slightly differently is we allocate those rooms manually within our team. So everything is still decided by the students, and then we take that application and meet those preferences the best we can. For the most part, we can do. Obviously, as we get further through the summer and closer to the start of term, it does get slightly harder. But
and that's where getting in early is important.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's our motto.
Yeah, of course. And in terms of finding these options and doing your research, where do you generally tell students to? I'm going to guess you tell students to come to you, or if they're coming to you, they're doing their research anyway. But where would you advise people to go to?
Our website is probably the best place, and we do run open days. We had one last month. We've got one this month as well. So that allows obviously everyone to actually come and see the accommodation as well, because it's much better to actually go in and see what you could be living in. But I would say website and our open days are the best place to utilize research.
Virtual tours, things like that, Terry, an option as well?
Yes, we've got virtual tours on our accommodation, but because we have private partners as well, so we don't have enough owned accommodation to kind of house all of the first years that fall under our guarantee. We go to purpose-built student accommodation providers and secure rooms with those. So we advertise their rooms on our website as well and give students as much information, not only about our own stuff, but also our private partners as well. So there's virtual tours, plenty of photography, and we have open days as well.
So obviously University of West of England is a campus uni, but there are benefits as well to living in the city, right?
Yes, so we do have city centre accommodation, which eventually down the line, some students who study at Frenchy campus will have to be allocated and live in the city. It can be quite daunting, I think, for a lot of students, especially if you're coming from somewhere that's not a major city. Being from Bristol myself, I feel I can have those conversations when we have to.
You have I'd say you're a decent man to know.
Yes, yeah. So I can understand where they're coming from, because I would feel the same way. I stayed in Bristol, I studied in Bristol, so but there's lots of benefits of living in the city centre that the campus may not bring. Jobs, social, nightlife, and I think you probably, from my opinion anyway, you maybe get to understand and learn a lot more about the city that you're studying in from being in that environment rather than just the campus as well. So there's positives both, really. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I loved it. When I was studying, I was on a campus uni and I applied late, so I ended up being in private accommodation in the city, and it was great. You just have a half an hour drive or something to your lectures, but you get so much for it. I mean, it's pros and cons, like all these things are, Terry, right? And I think also one of the sort of stereotypes maybe for the UK is that the UK is London and London only, but actually we are varied. You know, there are the cities, but also there are the more rural areas that also have universities.
Yeah, there's I think the University of Nottingham has a campus in a little hamlet called Sutton Bonington.
St Bonington.
Yeah,
that is the most English name ever, isn't it? That's cute.
Sutton Bonington.
Sutton Bonington.
Yeah.
Even more English.
So that's just like basically just the university campus and a few houses. It's really quite rural there. But then you've got universities that are on the coast. In Scotland, you've got them in the Highlands, or you've got them in historic cities like Lancaster, Manchester, just all over. So just don't think that London is the place to go. There's so much of the UK to see across all regions: Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England.
I like that you listed off all the home nations there. Good. Have all our bases covered. Were you going to add something there, Craig?
Oh no, I was just
Oh, you were just
Sutton
nodding
Bonington.
along.
I really like the name of that
Sutton
one.
Bonington.
Yeah.
I feel like one day you're going to live in Sutton Bonington.
Oh, maybe.
I think you'll
Maybe
enjoy it.
retirement.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll
Like
have
the,
a
like the hustle and bustle me there.
maybe. Yes, yeah. The hustle and bustle of the
Yeah,
corner
yeah.
shop. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I'm sure it's beautiful. Big up Sutton Bonington. Costs as well, an important thing to factor in because the UK can really vary, and again, campus versus city can really vary from a costings point of view. So you got to factor that in.
Absolutely. I mean, cost is probably this year for us the highest priority and the highest number of requests and questions we get. We've got such a wide range of options as well. So sometimes I get an email say, looking for accommodation, how much does it cost? I'm thinking, let me get the list.
Yeah.
Because we've got studios, en suites, shared bathroom, and they're all in different areas, so they all vary in cost as well. I suppose it goes back to that whole thing with research as well. Is got a budget, then let us know, and it helps us not put you in something that's completely unaffordable. But yes, it's the same with the city. You'll see a much like a slight increase in costing there as well, just because of where it is. Being in the city, it will naturally be more expensive. So it's just knowing what your kind of limitations are budget wise, and being able to live happily and afford where you're living as well.
And of course, there are options in terms of, we mentioned like self-catered or catered, ensuite, no ensuite. Once you've actually picked your accommodation, how do you know what to bring, Terry? What's going to be there, and what should I bring? Is there going to be bedding there? Are there going to be pots and pans? Are there going to be nice ornaments, or do I need to bring them? What's the deal?
It's just going to be the bare walls, really. So you kind of get your standard in your bedroom. So the standard is like wall storage, like shelving, bed, mattress.
That's a good one.
Yeah, very handy. Underbed storage and wardrobe drawers and a study desk. So that's kind of your basic. So for your bedroom, you'll need to bring like your bedding, your clothes, your toiletries, that kind of thing.
Don't forget your toothbrush.
Or your toothbrush.
Do not forget your toothbrush. And things like, what about in kitchens? Will kitchens have stuff?
We
Right.
so we supply the kind of essentials, so kettle, microwave. I think that might be it actually.
Okay.
Or maybe a toaster. I'm not
So
too
again,
sure.
is this something where will
Yeah.
you find a list though? You can find this whatever when you've decided your accommodation, you'll find a list.
I don't know. We send what to bring to your accommodation about a week or two before contract start. And we also, with kitchen appliances, we kind of, it depends. It varies. Some students will kind of all meet each other, and then they'll just pop out and buy a load of things that they share. Others want to get their own stuff. But yeah, we send a lot of communication out because you wouldn't know what to bring, would you? If your first
No.
time, you don't know. Do you bring everything? Do you not? So yeah, we make sure we send that communication out so you know what to bring.
And it's a big change for students suddenly going from wherever they may have been living to living not only in a different country but also living in a different culture and with flatmates. Cultural expectations. Terry, what would you say are some of the sort of common surprises that you hear from international students about suddenly living with people in the UK?
Is that you're kind of responsible for your own housekeeping.
Okay.
So in terms of like cleaning your own bedroom and bathroom, that's your responsibility. But the communal areas, such as like the kitchens, the living area, the corridors, that's a joint responsibility. So at Manchester Met, we kind of help the students by doing termly cleans. So our housekeepers will go in and help the students kind of clean the kitchens and the hallways.
But that's only termly, so
Yeah.
you probably want to clean your bathroom more than one termly.
Yeah.
But in terms of like how we help, so part of our arrival information, we put cleaning rotors into the flat. So as part of kind of the getting to know each other, they can kind of fill in that cleaning rotor, which kind of helps, create that bond and share the responsibility.
Would you go along with that, Greg?
Yeah. That's very similar to what you just said. I think that there's an expectation sometimes that we will come in and clean.
Yeah.
And it's kind of changing that expectation to no, this is your home. You need to take care of it. And yeah.
And this is where I suppose it's really important to communicate with your flatmates, right? So
Yeah.
you'll come and meet them first week, whatever it might be, and I know you hear a lot of. I know you mentioned the rota that you come up with, but a lot of flats, they'll have sort of flat meetings or a flat chat, I'd like to call it, where they sort of come up with a process, and it's going to be, you're going to do the kitchen this week, you'll do the kitchen this week, etc. That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, we do find. I mean, I don't go in the accommodation very often because I'm desk based, but on the occasions that you do get very different types of flat makeups.
Yeah.
So you will have the flat where the cleaning rota's on the wall and everyone's got their place and the sun, and then you go to another flat and it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really it varies completely, doesn't it?
And what advice would we give then to people who maybe are not having it how they would like it? Because let's face it, not every experience is going to be a perfect experience. What advice, Terry, would you give to students who maybe have got to their accommodation and it just isn't working how they would have liked it to?
I think it's really important to speak to the staff. So, you've got the customer service team that are on the front desks. You have the residential life team if you're at the university that's there to support with any kinds of issues that you may have. But just don't keep it to yourself. There will be somebody that you can speak to, whether or not you're unhappy with your room. We can organise room moves, room swaps.
That is an option, is it? Then?
Yeah. And if there's co-living issues, so maybe somebody isn't particularly pulling their weight with the cleaning, then we have a team there that can mediate flat meetings and give you the tools to be able to solve that situation.
That's good. That's nice to know. And these people are available. You have people available 24/7 if you need it for certain things, right? So if something's broken.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Security, maintenance, our accommodation managers, similar to is it the residential?
Yeah,
the same type of thing. But I think it's communicating.
Yeah.
That's like I said. If it's an issue within a flat, come and talk to us, because we're not going to say no. You've got to stay where you are. You can try and fix that issue, and if you can't fix it, we'll look at alternative options to make sure that we can get some sort of resolution. So, but I think it starts with communication with everything, really. Even just talking to your flatmates or staff. So.
That's interesting, because that was going to be my sort of question to round things off, was going to be what would your one piece of advice be to international students thinking about coming and studying in the UK from an accommodation perspective? What's the one thing you'd say to them?
I'd say, especially with international students, is just take your time, and especially you're adapting to a completely different way of living, culture, life, all that kind of stuff. And I think we get a lot of international students that one thing goes wrong and they kind of instant change they're looking for. It's actually, if you give it some time, give it, you've just moved in.
Yeah.
And you'll find that those that do give it a chance, you speak to them weeks later and they've settled in and they're getting on with things and stuff like that. So I think it's just take your time and just settle in, really. Yeah.
Terry, your one piece of advice?
Got to agree. Just take your time and don't put too much pressure on yourself to find that accommodation, to go to that one particular university, to want that one particular kind of living environment. Just take your time, pick a university, pick your accommodation, and even if it isn't what you expected, the staff there will be there to help. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Communicate and just get the support.
And when you say staff will be there to help you out, just like you two, just like look, and aren't they nice? They're nice people. See, they'll help you out. Don't worry at all. Good stuff. Thank you so much to both of you for being on the podcast. It's been great to have you both on. Can we come round to your narrowboat and do a podcast there? We'll do a rerun.
May have to do it in twos.
Okay, that's fine. All right, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, we can do it in twos. No bother at all. Listen, nice to have you both on the podcast. Thank you very much. Indeed, loads of resources available. Of course, via ucas.com/international. And if you'd like to find out more about being an international student in the UK, we do, of course, have a whole series of the UCAS International podcast, which you can get wherever you get your podcasts. Or, of course, we are on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button. We will speak soon.